Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. 30-20 is the final score in a game that wasn't about big plays, in a game that wasn't about broken assignments, in a game that wasn't about opportunity lost for Oregon. Let's be very clear here. Indiana went to Oregon and beat Oregon on their field in a physical football game, in a blow-for-blow football game. Indiana was better. And now they're the number 3 team in the country, and they got 3 votes for number 1 overall in the AP poll. And I just keep thinking about this, Caroline. Like, you asked a really important question last week. What's the biggest win in all of college football this year? We have an answer to that now. The biggest win in all of college football just happened. Indiana beating Oregon at Oregon is by far the biggest statement win of the season. And it's the reason why right now I think we need to have that conversation of, is Indiana actually a national championship contender?
Yes, they are. That was hands down the biggest win in Indiana football history. I mean, are you kidding me? You go on the road in a top 3 team in Oregon, a conference game, and win that game? Biggest win in Indiana history. Hands down the biggest win of the season. And I think it's big for a couple of different reasons. One, it solidifies that Indiana is a national championship contender. It proves that this Indiana team is different than that team last year, is better than that team last year. Indiana last year, they made the college football playoff, but it was through kind of a rinky-dink schedule. So I think everyone just kind of wrote Indiana off as a good story, a team that was able to look good against the bad teams, but couldn't compete against the good teams because they couldn't go on the road and go toe-to-toe with Ohio State in the regular season. They couldn't go on the road at Notre Dame and win that game in the college football playoff. So it felt like a team that was, okay, it's a fun story. This changes the narrative. This win on the road, a top 3 Oregon team in a rowdy environment, college game days in town, and you beat up on Oregon the way that you did. It changes the narrative. What it also proves too is not just the fact that they got a win. Like you said, it was the process. It wasn't fluky. It wasn't weird. The ball didn't bounce Indiana's way. Indiana just beat them. If anything, Indiana shot themselves in the foot. We got a Fernando Mendoza pick 6 late in that game. Then I thought, okay, now Oregon ties it. It's 20-all in the 4th quarter. This is where the meltdown begins. This is where the better team just kind of steps forward as the better team. This is where Oregon kind of asserts their dominance. No. Fernando Mendoza throws the pick 6. It's 2020. Then Indiana goes on a 12-play, 75-yard touchdown drive that eats up over 6 minutes of clock. That was shake it off. You made a bad decision. Forget about it. Move on and put yourself in position to win this football game. And that's exactly what Indiana did. They were tougher. They were more physical. Fernando Mendoza made fewer mistakes. They completely took the run away, essentially, from Oregon. Oregon, a team that's really been solid running the football. Indiana held them to less than 3 yards a carry. 81 yards on the day. They turned Dante Moore over twice in the 4th quarter, and that was really kind of all she wrote. That first interception, I thought, okay, that game's on ice. Indiana wins this game. It wasn't weird. It wasn't fluky. Indiana just did it. And credit to Curt Cignetti. He took over the joke, the butt of every joke in the Big Ten just a couple of years ago. Now, Indiana is a top team in the country and a legitimate national championship contender.
And when you look at their remaining schedule, they're now in the position they've never been in as a team. All they have to do is take care of business. If they just win the games in front of them, which they will be heavily favored in every single one, if they win the games in front of them, they will go to the Big Ten championship game as an undefeated team, likely to take on Ohio State for the Big Ten title. Like, that is staggering. Like, win or lose that game, they are going to be a college football playoff team. If all Indiana has to do now is just win the games they should win, and they'll be in. And that's why, Caroline, what's happening everywhere today is everybody's like, oh, Cignetti to Penn State makes total sense. It makes 0 sense. Curt Cignetti leaving Indiana for Penn State makes absolutely 0 sense. If you look at the operating expenses for both of these football programs, they're about equal. If you look at the money being made, James Franklin, again, was being paid, depending on which source you take, somewhere between $8 and $8.5 million a year. Curt Cignetti is currently paid $8.3 million a year. And you know what? He can lose a game or two in Indiana and still go out to dinner with his family. Like, Indiana can have a season where they lose 3 games, and he's not suddenly going to get fired. Like, quality of life and quality of conversation around your family and what it means to be the coach of a team has to matter. And if your argument is, well, it's Penn State in the modern college football climate, I don't think that matters. I don't think it matters anymore what the brand is, because you can create any brand as long as you're willing to put the money behind it. And guess what? While none of us were paying attention, money started to get spent on Indiana football. Like we've talked on this show, what happened to Vanderbilt? How did they suddenly change around? Money started to get spent. What happened in Indiana? Mark Cuban and money started to come in. Money is being spent at Indiana football. They are willing to spend money on Curt Cignetti. He's going to use this season to get a fat daddy raise, a 61-year-old coach that is deserving of a fat daddy raise. And he's going to get that big old bag, and I'm happy for him. But if you think he's going to leave Indiana to go to Penn State, I think you've lost your damn mind. There is no reason why he would ever think today Penn State is a better gig than Indiana at all. There's nothing that Penn State fans can plant their flag to and say, we have this and Indiana doesn't. That doesn't exist anymore. Welcome to modern college football, where Penn State is not as good a job as Indiana, thanks to what Curt Cignetti's already accomplished.
You're not wrong. Look, I think when we say what's a better job, we have to define what that means. Because at Indiana, if you go 10-2, you'll get a statue. At Pate, if you go 10-2, you're on the hot seat. I mean, Indiana went to the playoff last year, lost in the first game, and, obviously where they are now, you feel really great about Indiana. You've never felt better about Indiana football in your life than you feel right now. Last year, Penn State, James Franklin took Penn State to the Final Four in the college football playoff, and he's fired. So the expectations are incredibly high at Penn State. If you're not in the national championship conversation every single year, you are a failure. Those expectations are not changing anytime soon. At Indiana, if you're in the national championship conversation, hell yeah, we're just happy to be here. And that might change over time. Of course, if Curt Cignetti stays there and continues to build at Indiana. But I think there is something to be said about now a college football coach's job has never been harder right now than it ever has been. I think there is something to be said about being in a place where winning is celebrated, not tolerated. Where being in the conversation is the greatest thing that has ever happened to anyone in that fan base versus the expectation. So I think quality of life comes into play here. A couple of things, though. I mean, we cannot say that the brand of Penn State doesn't matter. Like, the brand carries weight. Being the head coach at Penn State, that matters. That means something. I don't know if that means something to Curt Cignetti, to be honest with you, because Curt Cignetti is just wired a little bit different. But it is a better brand. It does have a richer history. It does have richer tradition. Penn State just carries a certain, je ne sais quoi that Indiana doesn't. Also, we need to point out that Curt Cignetti is from Pittsburgh. He is from the state of Pennsylvania. Again, I don't know if that means anything to Curt Cignetti, but that is his history, and I think that's where it lands. But I do think right now in the NIL era, having that brand recognition doesn't carry the same weight that it used to. Because if I'm at 18 years old and I'm a 5-star and I can go anywhere in the world that I want to go, 10, 15 years ago, I'm probably going to Alabama or Ohio State because that's Alabama or Ohio State. Now, Ohio State can offer me $1 million. Indiana can offer me 1.5. I'm just going to go to Indiana because I'm getting more money there. And so it's not like Indiana doesn't have resources that Ohio State and Penn State doesn't, but it's just different. The playing field has been leveled now.
Where winning is celebrated, not tolerated, took me to church. Caroline Fenton just absolutely saying it perfectly.